Hi, everybody. Good afternoon. Good morning. I'm Alexis Tai. I'm one of the 8 career specialists in the Career Center and the liaison to the College of Engineering. And I'd love to get to know you all a little bit. So if you could, please go ahead and go in the chat. And I would just like to hear maybe like your major, and let's do today, what sounds fun? Your ideal superpower. If you could have any superpower, please put it in the chat. So your major and your ideal superpower, I'm going to guess most of you are electrical, if not all of you, and yet I'm asking, so please go ahead and humor me. That would be fantastic. So for me, my ideal superpower would be if I could travel in the pipes that like Mario and Luigi do, that would be super cool. And then I would just go all over the world right now. I mean, safely. I'd quarantine everywhere I go, but I still think it would be fun. Okay, cool. So Fabricio, flying, that sounds dope. I asked this question before and I got a lot of answers that had to do with like transporting yourself somewhere. So I feel like we're all kind of feeling that. Time travel, Anthony, that's solid. Okay, cool. So that sounds awesome. I'm glad I got to know all of you a little bit more. If any of you haven't yet, because I didn't count. I still want to know, dying to know.
Is luck a superpower?
I think so. Yes, I think that it could be. So I put the slides in the chat, so you can kind of follow along. There will be points during the presentation today, because we're going for like a marathon presentation. So there are 60 slides, don't be scared. Most of them go pretty fast, but you can follow along, and that's all I have to say about that. Okay, so yes, I'm from the Career Center. I'm your career specialist. We have lots of resources for you. I'm getting a lot of emails about resumes because the career fair is next week, and I'll be honest with you, it's a lot. My inbox is really full, so it's gonna take me a while. So if you need it right now, I recommend that you email your resume to careercounseling@cpp.edu, and we have drop-ins every day for 15-minute kind of questions and advising, 11 to 3, no need for an appointment. You also have individual appointments. I'm sure some of you, I recognize at least one name who I've had an appointment with, so that's good. So you can make an appointment with me in Handshake, and then we have a closed closet usually that's open, but right now, like as we're thinking about the career fair and interviewing and networking online, if you're not sure what to wear to be professional, we have a closed closet team. The closed closet isn't open, but we do have resources, so do reach out to us if you have questions. Okay, let's take a second to do some brainstorming. So we're supposed to talk about interviewing today, but one of the most deceptively difficult things in an interview is to talk about yourself. It's a little tough if you don't have a lot of practice doing it, and I think it's not that normal to do it, actually. I think for a lot of people it feels a little bit abnormal. So we're going to take a couple minutes here to just brainstorm things about you. So I have some guiding questions. It's like, who are you? What do you do? Why and for whom do you do it? What are your goals, your interests, your accomplishments, your curiosities? And some guiding questions are, think about an experience that influenced your career choice. Think about classes you like. What would you do for free just because you love it? What do you do for free just because you love it? And if you had to read a whole wiki article, what would it be on? So I just want you to take a second. I really mean it. Just go ahead and like have out a notepad or like write it on your computer. But I want you to legit take the next couple minutes. I'll call you back. Okay, let's all come back. I hope that was a real reflecting time. I won't lie to you. Sometimes I go to workshops and they ask me to do things like that. And I'm like, no way, I don't want to. But legitimately, I'm doing it to help you. So next part of this is thinking about something that some people call an elevator pitch. Some people call it a 60-second infomercial. I just call it a self-introduction because who likes to be pitched at? Who likes to have an infomercial shouted at them when you've just met? So here's a couple things to keep in mind for self-introductions, especially if any of you are signed up for the career fair. So this is going to be helpful. Almost always you're going to have to give a self-introduction. And so the first 3 elements you're probably very familiar with and can just slide off your tongue in a second. So your name, your major, your year in school. But these last 3 elements of a self-introduction are what is customizable information, okay? So that's your interests, your experiences, particularly your accomplishments, and any curiosities that you have or a question that you have to just make it more conversational. So what I want you to practice doing, just you don't have to close your eyes, but I'm doing it anyway. Imagine what it would be like if you're connecting with an industry person, at a networking event, a recruiter at the career fair, a professor who you're asking for a letter of recommendation, who taught you a couple years ago and might not remember you. How would you differently think about how to explain your interests, your experiences and accomplishments, and then that point of curiosity, right? So what you want to do is you want to think about your common interests and goals and recognize that this self-introduction is going to be very different depending on who you're talking to, right? But at least being able to understand that you have an audience, right? I hear a lot from students, I'm one of many computer engineering students, I'm one of many electrical engineering students, what makes me special? What is my value? And I would say you are a unique combination of all these things. So we just talked about your interests, your accomplishments, your goals, your curiosity, or you thought of them. And so recognize that those things about you are what makes you unique, and that unique combination is what makes you valuable. Think about it, name, major, year in school, interests, experience, curiosities, and recognize that it's going to change depending on who you're talking to. So I'm interested to hear, how do you think an elevator pitch might be different if you were talking to someone from industry who's also an engineer versus a recruiter maybe in HR? How would that conversation go differently?
I think with someone that's like an industry and who is an engineer, they know the more technical sides of things. So, they're going to be talking to you more about like, what are your technical skills? Like, what can you code? What are the projects that you've worked on? And I feel like some of those aspects will go into like a recruiter who is in HR. But with HR, I feel like it's more of like, how you are as a person, your soft skills, your interpersonal skills, those kinds of things. At least that's the first thing that comes into my head.
Yeah, I think that's great. You definitely get to geek out a little bit more with someone in the same role or industry, or you have that in common. What other things can you all think of? What might be different?
So what's in HR?
Human resources. So it's like your talent acquisition people who probably don't work in engineering, who are just hiring you or who are advocating to hire you. Good thing to know.
I would say for an HR, I'd probably speak on what they want to hear in terms of my team working skills and skills that I've like picked up on. And then with an engineer, I'd probably, how Adrian had mentioned, know what the technical terms and things that I know how to do like hands-on.
Yeah, I definitely see that. Okay, it's good that you're all thinking kind of more about the differences, that an HR person might be more like looking for someone with like a good attitude and stuff. I would also say the HR person has the job description, but they're not necessarily on the team. So they're going mainly off of keywords, right? So they're trying to understand, okay, are you a match based on the information I've been given? So try to keep that in mind. They're also like screening you just to make sure you seem like you're a fit, so that if they were to pass you along to the actual team, they wouldn't be like, wait, this person doesn't even know how to do these things. So just, I think that's something good to think about too. All right, so in terms of interviews or even networking events where you have your videos on in situations like this, except you have your videos off right now, how do you make a good impression? I was gonna make a video like this, and then I found this one and I was like, why would I bother? The production value is so good. Let me know real quick. You can hear this and see it, okay?
Interviewed over Skype, and you want to look better than this. Well, here are 4 easy keys you can apply to look good in Skype interviews. Key 1, sound. Having good sound is just as important as having good video. An empty room like this might sound fine to you in normal conversation, but it creates an annoying echo for anyone listening on video, especially if the floor isn't carpeted. Basically, the more stuff that's in the room to deflect the sound, the less echo. And make sure there's no loud noises in the background. Loud office conversations, construction, and air conditioner. These will make your interview painful to listen to. Key 2, location. Create a good background. This one is not good. It makes me look like a total slob. This one is too distracting. What's that guy doing back there? In this one, just make sure you don't have anything embarrassing in the background. Keep it neat and simple. A white wall is usually too plain, so I set up a bookshelf like this. You can also use a house plant, a lampshade, a piece of art, etc. If you're at the office, you can set up a clean desk with a computer in the background. Now you're probably using a laptop with a built-in camera or a webcam like this. Notice how the camera is actually several inches below my eyes. So when you're looking through the camera, if you angle it at your face, it shows the ceiling. So you want to stack it up on a box like this. Basically, you want the camera at eye level because this is the way people are used to seeing you. And you want to be a little more than arm's length from the camera, so you're about this size in the frame. And you want your eyes to be about 2/3 of the way to the top. Key 3, lighting. Good lighting makes a huge difference. Professional lighting uses 4 light sources, but you really only need 1. If it's daytime, you can just use a window. If it's too bright, pull the shades. You need the window to be pretty much in front of you, not to the side or behind. Wow, I think I found the worst interview setup ever. If it's nighttime and there's no window nearby, grab a lamp. Don't use overhead lighting like this. It makes you look terrible. And definitely don't light yourself from below, unless you're telling scary campfire stories. What you want is a lamp in front of you, like this one, with the light slightly above the height of your eyes while you're sitting down. Of course, this one is great because I can adjust the levels, but pretty much any lamp will do. If it's too bright, try moving it back. If it's too dim, just move it a little closer. Key 4, you. Now that everything else is set up, make sure you look good. Dress appropriately, at least on top. You might want to wear makeup. Yeah, even some men do it. And don't look down at the computer screen while being interviewed. Look directly at the camera. Now, this might feel a little weird to you at first, but to the people watching, it looks like you're looking directly at them, which is good. And try not to move too much. Even just a few inches back and forth can be really distracting. So, to recap, find a quiet place without distracting sounds. Set up a good background. Set your camera at eye level, arm's length away. Make sure you have good lighting, and make sure you look good. Now, I've put all this into a checklist for you, and you can find it in the link below the video. That's it. Good night.
All right. I don't need to make a video, right? That was good. I don't think I could do better than that. So, okay, so what did you all, I mean, I'm kind of interested to hear, since you've been at this Zoom game for a little while now, what are some of your tips for looking good in interviews or in networking events, for classes where the professors are a little more strict? What are some of your tips for looking good on Zoom?
I guess one thing I noticed is to not have like any really bright lights behind you, because that really messes with the front lighting on your actual face to the camera.
Yeah, so true. Or if you have the light to the side, you kind of look two-faced like I do right now, but that's okay. That's a good tip. Other thoughts?
I think one thing that a lot of people are learning through all this is like, you know how directors or, production crews, they'll set up lighting and everything. And I think that's one of the things that they have to focus on now, because there are some professors that require students to turn on their cameras. And so like they have to get a whole setup going on.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. I was really thinking about investing in a ring light. They're like $20 or something, but haven't done it yet. Okay, well, that sounds good. So a couple other things. Make sure to test your technology. I think we're pretty used to Zoom by now, but you've seen Zoom has failed. You've also probably seen, like we did, the career fair over career fair plus, and then now we're moving to Handshake. And so allegedly it's going to be held over Handshake, but things could pivot. So just being aware and being flexible is sort of part of the hiring process now. It's part of how I think you will be judged, right? Is how flexible and adaptable and like good you are at rolling with the punches. Make sure to update login information, usernames. Probably isn't that applicable, but if you do have a Skype interview, which people still do sometimes, having something that's like TIE Fighter 29 or whatever probably isn't the username that you want to be using for your interview. Make sure to show up on time, not too early. That actually, even like in normal situations, stresses out the people who are interviewing you. So they usually have you scheduled in for a particular time. And the other thing, I know the video made fun of it, and like you had pajama pants that were fuzzy and cute. But I actually think for an interview, my recommendation is to just go all out, head to toe, because you want to feel good and like you are going to conquer the world. make sure you're dressed professionally all the way. I've also heard horror stories where like the laptop fell and then someone wasn't wearing pants, and then, you know, it's just not good. It's just not good. So go ahead, dress all the way. That is my recommendation to you. Some other things that were talked about, making eye contact with the camera. And so a tip to help with that is maybe putting like googly eyes on your computer. I know it sounds silly, but you could make it with Post-it notes. You could go to Michael's when it's opened again, if it's not already open. And that's a good way for you to focus your eyes on the camera during the interview, and just it makes it seem like you're more engaged. Okay, another virtual interview tip. I'm sure you've heard this in high school and in your first couple years. Have a portfolio, have some work samples. As you're doing projects in your classes, take screenshots, save them in a, you know, online drive of some kind. You're gonna need that stuff. You're gonna need it. So please do start compiling that. I've talked to 2 students so far who I did mock interviews with, and they actually took the time to put together a portfolio, and they shared it during a virtual interview, like they shared their screen. And both of those people got the job, okay? Both of them. And both sets of their interviewers were so impressed, because unfortunately, almost no one does this. But I was talking to Ed Chang from Northrop Grumman, and he was saying, like, you know, a picture's worth 1,000 words. Show us pictures. So show us evidence of, you know, where your project was at the start and then at the end. Show us your process, show us your timelines, and that stuff is helpful. So at the bare minimum, make sure you're compiling that stuff now. So one of the students, what he did, it was really just like a 2-page thing on Google Docs that he put together some work samples to walk through during his interview. And that was great. It was really well done. And, you know, he works in aerospace now. So. Okay, we also have a lot of really great interviewing resources on our Career Center website. So you do have access to a system called Big Interview, and this is a virtual mock interview platform. So if any of you have been invited to interview basically with a computer and not a person, it's like you record yourself and it gives you questions, and then you have to answer them, and then you send it to the hiring team. Have any of you actually experienced this with like SparkView or HireHue? Or I think that we're kind of, it's becoming a little more popular. I'm not necessarily a fan, because I'm like, supposed to connect with each other. That's part of the interview process. So Big Interview does allow you to do mock interviews sort of by industry or general government jobs for admissions. And so you can pick what kind of interview you want. You can actually pick your avatar. So some of them are more strict than others. So you can scare yourself or have a really nice avatar asking you questions. And then you go ahead and you answer the questions and record yourself. So you're actually able to see yourself being recorded giving the answers. And then it has a rating system so you can self-rate. You can also email it to someone like me and have me rate your answers too. And that's probably the most similar to that, that computer interviewing process. The other thing is I put together an interviewing prep worksheet with some of the most common questions that I hear from students. So like, for tell me about yourself. Almost every time people are like, I'm ready, Alexis, let's go. And then I'm like, tell me about yourself. And they're like, oh, I don't know. I'm a complex person. I contain multitudes, right? So being able to answer that question again, like why we did the exercise earlier, is because it is complicated. You are a complex person. You do contain multitudes, but you gotta know how to customize the information for your audience. So all of that is at the Career Center website. And so why do we interview people? Like, what's the point? Why do we do that? Aren't resumes enough? Don't they learn enough about our qualifications then?
Right, to know about the people that they'll be working with.
Yeah, they have to get to know you as a person, right? There's some things that a piece of paper can't communicate. Yeah, really true. So it's just that's your personality, your communication skills, your appearance, your corporate culture fit, your ability to do the job, anything that they had questions about in your resume. Because truly your resume was just to get them curious enough about you to invite you to the interview. This is where they really get to know you. So components of the interview, you'll have an opening in the body. This is where you're going to show off your strengths, your personal qualities, be able to tell at least 3 to 5 success stories. I'm talking like your highlights. The highlight reels of your life. Like it was the end of your life and you'd still be thinking like, gosh, these are the best things that I've done, right? What those legacy kind of things. And then demonstrating your knowledge and competencies, you know, and all of this as it relates to the job description, closing, and then questions. So that's the typical interview format. even over virtual. So how to prepare for the interview, you want to make sure to research the job and company, know yourself, make sure that you're at a polytechnic university, so know what projects you're working on both in and out of the classroom, both personally and because you're part of this organization or because you did it in a class. Make sure you have examples and practice. So when I say research the job and company, how do you research jobs and companies? How do you do research?
You can follow the social media accounts or just like look on the website for any recent projects and who's the head of the departments and stuff like that.
Yeah, it's great. Yeah, I think absolutely. So social media and not just like your traditional Instagram, whatever, but like LinkedIn too, right? And the company website's a great place to go. You can look them up in the news. I genuinely feel like anytime I've had an interview, it's like studying for a midterm. I like download all this information into my brain as if I worked there. That's how I want them to feel by the time I get into the interview. So, okay. And so there's pretty much 3 different kinds of questions you can get asked in an interview. There's your traditional questions. This is the really common, tell me about yourself. What's your greatest strength? What's your greatest weakness? Where do you see yourself in 5 years? Why should we hire you? You know, they're just kind of your back and forth traditional questions that they're kind of asking you just plainly, this is the question, go ahead and provide an answer. And then you have behavioral questions. This one, what it's trying to measure or what it tries to tell the recruiter is that your past behavior is going to indicate how your future behavior with their company is going to be. So how you respond to issues and problems and challenges in the past is going to tell them, okay, if they were in a similar situation, that is how they would respond. And so more than just giving like a theoretical answer, they want it grounded in history. So this is you showing off those highlights of your life, those success stories that you have. You get to pick what you talk about, right? So show off when you shined most brightly. So this might be, tell me about a time when, ... you solved a problem using teamwork. Tell me about a time when you worked with a very difficult team member. Tell me about a time you had conflict with a boss. Tell me about a time when you failed. You know, these are really, really common. So on that worksheet that I alluded to, the prep for interview worksheet, I do have a bunch of different scenarios and then the opportunity for you to put them into a star format. So GM and a lot of other companies expect their interviewees to use this format. And basically the setup is situations. This is where you're providing context, the task or challenge that was presented to you, what actions you took to address that problem, and then the results. Something that I see, people either leave out the situation or the results almost every time. I think people are pretty good at tackling the problem. But I remember I was doing a mock interview with someone and they explained their whole story. It was like a minute and a half. And then at the very end, they said, and so we were able to complete the rose float in time. And I was like, this was for the rose float? I was so confused. So please make sure to just set it up, you know, make sure that it's clear so that they're building the image in their mind properly, or else they're kind of like, okay, so you were using these technical skills, but I'm not really too sure like in what context. So provide the context. You can see the STAR like formula in a lot of different ways. I've heard PAR, I've heard CAR, I've heard SHARE, but it's pretty much problem, action, result, challenge, action, result, something like that. I like to, for bonus, if you have the time, try to tie it to the relevance that it has to the position. That'll give you some bonus points. Here's an example. So give an example or tell me about a time when you worked on a team. So here's the scenario. During my last semester in college, I worked as part of a research team in the history department. The professor leading the project was writing a book on the development of language in Europe in the Middle Ages. So that would be the setup, right? So I get it. I'm like, okay, professor's writing, you were helping, great. We were assigned different sectors to focus on. So that was the challenge or the task, right? I suggested that we meet independently before a weekly meeting with the professor to discuss our progress and help each other out if we were having any difficulties. So that's the action. The result was the professor really appreciated the way we worked together and it helped to streamline his research as well. He was ready to start on his final copy months ahead of schedule because of the work we helped him with. So we're getting that shining light kind of story. And you probably have stories like this, right? It doesn't have to be like so super crazy, but it should be things that you're proudest of and probably relevant to the job, right? When possible. They're looking for transferable skills there. So we talked about you have traditional questions that are more straightforward, behavioral questions that are grounded in history, and they're looking for transferable skills and stories. And then we have your technical questions. So this is where they're measuring to see, okay, we said that we need someone who knows MATLAB, C++, SolidWorks, blah, blah, blah. This is where they're testing to understand your knowledge, or even just your thought processes. I've heard someone in the construction industry say that they like to ask, how would you build a patio? Walk me through step by step how you would approach building a patio. So they want to understand, like, do you have basic understanding of like what goes first, what kinds of considerations you should make? Do you measure before you buy all the concrete, right? Like, so thinking through those details, and what skills would you say are most important for, as a blank kind of engineer, can you tell me about different industries use different types of equipment? What do you think would be the most common kinds or the best kind to use in this scenario? So those are your more technical questions. That said, technical questions can range in a lot of different areas and depend on the industry. So you don't have to guess about them necessarily. You can find them. They're on Glassdoor, they're on Indeed, some of them are on Handshake now. You can Google search for sample questions for a particular industry. So just start to get used to what these questions could look like, because they're the kinds that maybe like your friend in your class could help you with, but I probably can't, right? I'm more like someone from HR where I wouldn't necessarily know the details about how this all plays out in your work. And I would probably, like if I was an HR recruiter, I'd probably ask you more traditional and behavioral questions. Have any of you interviewed for anything ever? Yes or no in the chat. Cool here.
I've had an interview for just like customer service jobs, but never for like an internship or something like that.
Yeah, so customer service job. And you probably got a lot of those non-technical questions, right? Like traditional and behavioral, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Job in high school, yes. Nothing formal, not quite really. Okay, so we have like quite a few different levels of experience with interviewing. Yes, for summer research. Very cool. All right, so that's good to know. We're gonna get to practice in a little bit, so that'll be good. Some things to consider in the interview, just other things that affect how you come across, I guess. Your voice, your speed, your tone, your volume, your word choice, the posture that you have, your appearance, your eye contact with the camera, your facial expressions, and your body language. So I'll say this, I feel like on Zoom, what would normally come across as thoughtful sometimes comes across as comatose. So you really have to be careful to be extra energetic when you are on a Zoom call, because it's just a little bit harder for those things to translate. So think, I don't want you to drink extra coffee, but just be aware, like smile a little bit more. What would normally be like a shy smile might just look like you're stoic, so just keep some of that in mind. You don't have to guess. Again, you can record yourself on Big Interview and you can watch yourself back and say like, yeah, actually that's not how I wanted to come across. I wanted to come across as a little more excited in the interview. All right. Posture, I think even just for how you feel, it's important to have good posture. Take the Superman pose before the interview. Feel like a superhero, like you all are, with your super speed and your teleportation skills and your good luck, and then go for it, right? Okay, and then closing summary, they'll almost always ask you, we're interviewing a lot of applicants. It's a really competitive pool. Why should we hire you? Why would you be the best one? And so this is where you get to show off the overall summary of your highlights, like your education, your experience, your qualities, and your interest in the position. So truly, I'm not saying that interest is the only thing that's important, but it gives them a good idea of whether or not you would take the position. So really and truly, it's a big bummer. It's a big, big bummer if you're recruiting for a position and you make an offer and then someone doesn't want it, right? Because you've committed to a person, you've argued about it with your colleagues, you've made some hard choices and said no to other candidates, and then you're told that they're not actually interested. So sometimes interest can go a long way. It's not the only thing, of course, but it can be a deal breaker or a tiebreaker for sure. Also a deal breaker. So just keep that in mind. I'd also say that there are ways to communicate your interests. So make sure to send a thank you within 24 hours. We have literally not hired people because they didn't send a thank you note. Genuinely. We were like, they must not have wanted it. Everyone else sent a thank you note that was personalized specific and positive. And so really do make sure this is a mandatory part of the interview process. I'm not saying that every time you don't send a thank you note, you won't get the job or something, but it's really important to have a follow-up strategy, especially in light of COVID, and that starts with a thank you. Other things, they're gonna likely, I mean, I can't think of an interview where they don't ask you, what questions do you have for us? So make sure to ask good questions, right? That's not, you know, in the interview, it's not the appropriate time to say like, so what is this job? What would I be doing? What is this company? Right? That's not the correct time. So more so a well-researched question. And I think even better if you can give context to the question that you're asking. So I have an example here. I saw on your website that the company has done X, Y, and Z. I was impressed. I'm curious about how that impacts A, B, and C. So it shows you've done your research, are genuinely invested and interested. So it, again, shows off your interest, but also your research skills and that you're just like a great person who already understands their company. Other things, closing the interview, they'll probably walk you out or at least have you say goodbye in Zoom. And so that's your time again to close it with, I've really enjoyed this interview. Thank you so much. I know you all must be really busy, but I'm looking forward to hearing back from you. And then make sure to ask for contact information for that thank you. And then after, you know, you've probably asked or they've told you, we're gonna contact all the candidates in 2 weeks. That's pretty normal. So after 2 weeks, follow up. You already thanked them right after the interview. Follow up, follow up, follow up. So real story, I had a student email me in the summer and say like, I haven't heard back from the company from a month ago. They said they would get back to me in a week and they didn't. And I'm just not sure if it's like too late. Should I just give up? And so I asked them, you know, what was your follow-up game after the interview? And they said, I didn't follow up. Was I supposed to? Is that a thing? I didn't want to come across as pushy. And so I sent over some templates and I was like, that's okay. Go ahead and follow up now. They're probably just really busy. And so they were like, are you sure? Is it going to come across as weird now? And I was like, no, just go for it. Be positive. It's okay. Go for it. And they got the job the next day. So they followed up and they were like, oh my gosh, we just forgot about you. Yes, we want to give you a job or an internship. I can't remember. So do it. Follow up in a nice, empathetic way, no, understanding, and just assume it's because people are busy and life is crazy. But assume the best, that you are probably their candidate and they just need a little ping like, hi, I just wanted to follow up. Thank you again so much for the interview. I loved meeting the team. And I just wanted to check in and reiterate that I'm really interested in the position and looking forward to hearing back. Positive, upbeat, fluffy. My brother-in-law works in construction engineering. He was literally like, call me. I'm out on the field all the time. I cannot check emails. Just call me. If I give you my number, you can call me. And that's how I will remember you. So get in touch with them the way that they prefer, but do feel free to follow up respectfully after the amount of time they stated. And then after that, you know, once every 7 days or something. It doesn't have to be all the time. Few resumes. So how many of you already have a resume actually? If you some kind of good reaction. Yes. Okay, I think all of you have a resume, so that's good. Today we're going to talk about some resume basics, but I'll try to like skip over some stuff that might seem repetitive to you if you don't really need that help. And then we're also going to go through trying to identify kind of where you are at with resumes. So the purpose of a resume is to showcase your skills and qualifications. It's basically a one-page advertisement of who you are and how you fit the job description, right? So it's, we'll start there. What do you have to offer? How long do you think an employer spends looking at a single resume on average? How long?
30 seconds.
30 seconds.
10 to 15.
10 to 15. Okay. Other thoughts? You're all too high.
I think I remember it's like 5 to 10. Like they like have to glimpse it.
Yeah. Employers devote an average of 6 to 15 seconds when reading a resume. 6 to 15 seconds. So that's how long it takes for them to make an impression and then decide if they're going to look at your resume for longer or put you in the trash. So with that in mind, let's take a look at this resume. I know it's kind of hard to see because it's probably tiny on your screen, but literally just where do your eyes go on the page? Not necessarily like what you're reading, but like what are you noticing in 6 seconds about this resume?
Work experience.
Work experience.
Okay.
What's up, Billy Bronco? Fastest.
Yeah. Yeah, like literally you are seeing with your eyes the bold stuff, right? You're seeing the bold things first. You're trying to look at probably the title. So like a lot of you said work experience, probably because it's all caps and it's bold, right? So just realizing that your font sizes and your formatting makes a huge difference in how well your information can be conveyed. Okay? So the look of a resume, there's a few things to keep in mind: font style, margins, white space, the length of a resume, and consistency. So make sure it's readable in terms of font size. Make sure that your margins are no less than 1/2 inch and no more than 1. That you have a good balance. Some of you said that the other one was too squished. I'd probably say it's because it's probably super small on your screen, but maybe it was squished. How long should a resume be?
A page.
I agree.
One page.
Yeah.
Yeah, 1 page.
Yeah, a page, right? Just one. And I would say I've heard like after 10 years of experience, you can add a second page. My argument too, though, would be if people are looking for 6 seconds, what's the likelihood or benefit of having them have to flip the paper over or go on to a second page when they're reviewing it on the computer? Like, is that going to really help you? So part of making a good resume is making it scannable and making it short enough that they can see the most relevant stuff really quickly. And that it is consistent, because again, if you're looking at a resume, you want to be able to glance at it and see really quickly what are the headers, what are all the organizations, what were all the roles that the person was in, what's the key critical bullet that they want me to notice is probably listed first. You want it to be scannable in a second. So they're seeing like design engineer, production engineer, structural engineer, team leader. Okay, cool. This is for syntax aviation, avionics, passenger aircraft. Okay, I'm noticing a trend here, right? Like you want them to be able to scan. So some resume essentials: name and contact information, education, experience, skills, activities, and memberships. I'd usually like poll everybody, but you all have resumes, so I'm sure you have this stuff already. But a question I get asked a lot is, Alexis, what are employers actually looking for? So they get a resume, like you all mentioned, and what are they going to search for? So I asked my friend who's an engineer at Appfolio, so software engineer, and I asked her, what do you look for with your interns and your full-time entry-level hires? And so she said, usually it's education and coursework is pretty critical. So what she meant by that was that, like, let's say for them, they're doing software development. If it looks like the person's really interested in machine learning, because all of the upper division coursework that they're showcasing on their resume has to do with machine learning, then it's probably not a fit, actually. So make sure to tailor what you're putting on your resume to the position, because she said, like, sounds like a great resume, they sound like a great person, doesn't seem like they want to work here. Done. Other things, internships and projects. She mentioned that she really looks for the context, what role they had. Not everyone's a team leader, so she said that it's okay to be honest about, you know, your actual role. More than okay, you should be honest about that. The technology that you used, and then your achievements. So let's say you had a goal for the project, what came of it, and then again, specifically your skills and your level of proficiency with those skills. So that's what she looks for when she's looking for interns and then entry-level hires. I'll also say she mentioned it's okay to have like your Kohl's cashiering experience on your resume when you are in like starting out in your college degree. You might not have as many projects yet. You might not have as many internships. But as you progress in your college career, it's not a laundry list. You can take that stuff off. So make sure to be theming your resume, but put what you have. So you don't need to feel bad about that. So think about the transferable skills you have for your Kohl's cashiering experience, and just highlight those things instead of like, when I was at Kohl's, I was doing all of this like cool stuff around electrical. If that's not true, then, you know, it's fine. Just focus on like the teamwork and the initiative and the problem solving. I literally had a student a couple weeks ago who was saying like, yeah, I know it's not that related, but I did, I guess, like help put together a standard operating procedure in light of COVID-19 to help people to check the boxes in compliance with COVID regulations. And then they brought it to regional and it got implemented everywhere. And I was like, oh, that's not related. That sounds boring. No, of course, that's really great, right? That's a huge impact. It's also really thinking in an engineering way about how to solve a problem, how to systematize it, and then it was implemented widely. Like, that's incredible. Why do you think that's not relevant, right? So think about those transferable skills. Don't sell yourself short. Those are some things to keep in mind. And then I get asked too, Alexis, that sounds nice and everything, but like, I don't have anything to say. I don't really know. I don't feel like I've done a lot. I don't feel like I have anything. I haven't met someone yet. We couldn't get their resume to a page. Nobody. I've not met a single person. So there's lots of things you could put on there. Languages you speak, internships you've had, projects you've done, side hustles. You can talk about your honors and awards, scholarships you've gotten, your computer skills, and put what you have, right? Again, you are that unique combination of all of your accomplishments and achievements and hobbies and interests. So remember that you're putting what you have and you're broadcasting that as why it might be a fit to the employer. Okay, I also get a lot of questions about education, or I see this done wrong a lot. So your education really should be up top. As you get further along in your career, it's of course going to go to the bottom, because heuristically, like if you're scanning a resume and you're seeing like, we're hiring a design engineer. This person's been a design engineer for 8 years. They don't care where you got your education, right? Like that's fine. But at first they're trying to figure out, okay, so I'm seeing this person is a computer engineer now. So I can imagine like some of the coursework that they've done, and they probably have the qualifications, right? So at this level, your education is one of the biggest things you have going for you. So go ahead, put it at the top. Also be aware that you only need your graduation date. I see a lot of people put their start dates for their education. And I would say from a recruiter's perspective, so if you're thinking from their perspective, why do they want the date on there? It's so that they can know when you graduate and when they could potentially hire you full time. They know then if they're hiring you for an internship, if they like you, at what point could they expect to convert you to full time, right? So they're more interested in when you're going to get to that point, and probably how long-ish you are, or how far off you are in learning everything you're supposed to learn in your program, right? So focus instead on anticipated graduation. It also eliminates the opportunity for people to judge you if you have had an untraditional background in education, which is fine. Like, let's say you started years ago, left, came back, like you shouldn't be punished for that. So just go ahead and put the graduation date, make sure to include your GPA, and write out Bachelor of Science, comma, your degree. And I see this a lot. It'll be like electrical engineering major, but that's not the degree that you're getting, right? You're getting a Bachelor of Science, and that's the qualification for a lot of the jobs. So make sure to write out Bachelor of Science, comma, your major. But truthfully, you get to decide on the convention for this. You get to decide where the GPA goes. You get to decide if you put your degree before you put your school. You get to decide if you want to put chemical engineering, comma, Bachelor of Science. That's also fine. Just think again about how, at a glance, people are going to see your resume, and is it saying what you want it to say about you? Let me see. Any questions about education before I move on? Okay.
No.
Okay, so experience, again, we want to articulate those transferable skills, quantify your accomplishments when possible. I hear this a lot too. It's like, Alexis, it was just a volunteer thing, or like, Alexis, it was just for class. That doesn't make a difference. So from an employer's perspective, you don't need to exaggerate. Like, you can be honest about the scope of the work that you did, but it doesn't matter if it was paid or unpaid. It doesn't matter if you were hired and given money to do the work. It just matters that you got the skills from that position. Make sure to start your bullet points with action verbs in the correct tense. So it's first person, but without the I. So it's like, I designed, or I design, but without the I. So design and design. Think through, again, those transferable skills, especially for those of you that have, a retail background, or like, you've tutored. I think someone said that they're tutoring for MEP. So think about the transferable skills that you want to show off. These are a few that are especially attractive to employers. Let me see if there's anything that's confusing on here. When they say career management, they mean like self-awareness. So take a note, you have the slides. And then for your bullet points. So what I'm talking about here is like, if you can imagine it, let me go back to the resume. You have work experience. So you have like the name of the organization, sure, your role, the dates, and then these are the bullet points where you're actually explaining what you did. So created, managed, and executed a test plan, certification of hardware, documenting and analyzing technical data, la, 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 la. So that's the bullet point that we're gonna talk about right now. So it doesn't have the organization. So sometimes when I say like, how would you improve this bullet? People are like, I would put the organization. And I'm like, that's true. But for the bullet, how would you fix the bullet? So Google has a really easy way to think about this. Since I said, articulate your transferable skills, quantify your accomplishments. Sometimes that seems a little bit theoretical. So Google made a formula. So it's accomplished X as measured by Y by doing Z. X by Y by Z. Accomplished X as measured by Y by doing Z. So X by Y by Z. So for example, you might have member of Leadership for Tomorrow Society. That's okay, I guess. It doesn't start with an action verb. I guess it kind of tells you a little bit about what they've done. Better, selected as one of 275 for this 12-month professional development program for high achieving diverse talent. So you get, okay, you were one of 275. It was a year-long program. It was for high achieving diverse talent. And you get a little bit more of a sense of like, you were chosen for this. And then the best, selected as one of 275 participants nationwide for this 12-month professional development program for high achieving diverse talent based on leadership potential and academic success. So this gives a lot more of a scope and understanding of why this person would have been selected for a nationwide search. So it seems much more competitive, right? Here's another one. 1 second place in a hackathon. That's nice, you know, it's a clear accomplishment. But were there 3 teams or what? Like, that makes a difference. 1 second place out of 50 teams in a hackathon. 1 second place out of 50 teams in hackathon at New Jersey Tech by working with 2 colleagues to develop an app that synchronizes mobile calendars. So this is much more descriptive. It's not just the accomplishments. It's not just how they measure the accomplishment that it was out of 50 teams, but it's also what they did. I would say better than this for a technical resume would be 1 second place out of 50 teams in a hackathon by working with 2 colleagues to develop an app in React, in open source. Like, give what kind of thing you used that synchronizes mobile calendar, like in parentheses, across Google, Calendly, and Microsoft Outlook or something like that. So then you get a lot more of the scope. Let's try a couple. Led fundraising events for my fraternity. How could you improve this bullet? How could you make it better? What are some things you could add? Is this already like a super good bullet?
It's too generalized.
Yeah.
You
what
could,
could-
the name of the fraternity.
True, you could put in the name of the fraternity. What else?
And
Also,
what kind of events?
How much funds were made,
Mm.
in like what amount of time.
Yeah, a timeline, scope of like
The
how
type of
much
event.
money you made, what type of event. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So
Where did the funding go?
where did the funding go? Those are all really good points. And depending on the position you're applying for, you would probably want to emphasize different parts more or less, right? So in this case, here's an example. Planned, it's not the best bullet or anything, but planned and organized successful fundraising events for my fraternity, increased funds raised by 20% over the previous year. But hey, yeah, if you have like thousands of dollars to show off, then that's probably a more, you know, compelling number. Like possibly, we're not sure. It could have been like $80 the previous year, and then they raised $100 this year. You know, that doesn't ring as good. So they're like, okay, we increased 20%. And that's fun. You know, like make sure to put your best foot forward. Here's another one. I honestly think based on what you all said, you'll probably mostly be doing things like this today. So, so practice is important. So work as a front desk supervisor. How do we make this one better?
For what company?
Sure.
I
But
would
again,
say
you'd have the company above the bullet point. So you'll probably see that already.
Maybe add another adjective, efficiently work as a front desk supervisor, something like that.
Maybe, but you don't want adverbs. So you don't need adverbs because you want to show how you did it. So efficiently, I guess that's a way to showcase how, but it's not like necessarily believable. So show your results, don't tell.
Also, like describe what you did as the front desk supervisor instead of just do a general word as it worked.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, I think that's good. So more specifically what you did. worked, helped, assisted, those are not good action verbs. They don't tell you a lot of information, right? They're not compelling. They're helping verbs. They're literally helping verbs. You'd have to say what you did after that. Other thoughts? Okay. So, supervise front desk operations for a 200-room, 4-star hotel, providing direction to 5 receptionists and 2 support staff. What a missed opportunity if they submitted their resume as worked as front desk supervisor. Am I right? What? So you're getting much more of a sense of the kinds of things they would have to worry about for a hotel operation that at minimum, like if all the rooms are full, you're thinking about 200 different sets of guests, right? And it's a 4-star hotel, much higher caliber, and they are essentially overseeing 7 different people in 2 different kinds of roles. So that's a big difference. Then I get asked, Alexis, what about academic projects? You are at a polytechnic university, show off your projects. Don't feel ashamed of doing that. I've heard from students at UCI who were interning at Panasonic Avionics Corporation, and they were sharing like, I have to do internships. It's the only way I can get hands-on experience because they learn things very theoretically. But our Cal Poly Pomona students get to learn things in the classroom, which makes them much more competitive when Panasonic Avionics Corporation starts recruiting interns, right? So don't be ashamed of this. Show off your projects. They are hands-on and good. But with that, make sure you put the project objective, your role, your task statement, including your technical skills and the outcome. So as Sarah said, she needs that context. Sarah is my friend who's a software engineer. She needs that context. She needs to understand what your role was and what you did and what was accomplished and your technical skills used. So, okay, some resume don'ts. Don't put photos on your resume. That is a no-no. So just don't do it. That's all I'll say. Don't have it be too crowded. Make sure you have that good balance of white space and text. Again, it's not a laundry list. Make sure that your resume is focused by the time you're actually applying to a position, and just don't put any, inappropriate graphics. I've literally heard from students, they've put like a little phone icon next to their phone number just because it's cute, and then they weren't hearing back. And it's because the applicant tracking systems can't always read that. I think they're getting better, but like what a stupid reason not to get seen and invited to an interview, right? Like what a stupid thing that you could just take off your resume. So you don't need those things. I think that you'll never get docked for having a plain resume as long as it's clean and consistent. The content's more important, so keep that in mind. Some resume do's: do be consistent, specific, factual. This is a really big one, I know, in light of COVID-19. I'm hearing from employers and recruiters that there is an increased rate of people lying on their resumes or lying in interviews because they are desperate. But don't do that because that ruins your chances and puts you on a blacklist forever. It's not worth the risk. So be honest. You don't need to exaggerate, but also don't undersell yourself, which I think is another problem that I see as people are doing resumes, like with that worked as a front desk supervisor situation. Let's see here. And so my question for you is, what are you looking for? So we just talked about a lot of resume stuff, but part of my job at the Career Center is to have you think through what would be a good fit for you, your values, your skills, your interests, your talents. What kind of organization do you feel like you would be a good fit at? This is important to reflect on because what you don't want is for you to come to the end of your Cal Poly Pomona career and you say, I will work anywhere that pays me money. That's not a good evaluation of what you need or who you are or what your value is to the world. So do take the time to think about teams you've been a part of, group projects you've worked on, part-time jobs you've had, internships, the volunteer opportunities. What do you value in an organization? What kind of work do you want to be doing? What kind of people do you want to do that work with? So think about these things. This is very important. And I will say that resumes are something you can do in a weekend, but putting things on your resume and gaining those experiences you need to be ready for that dream job takes your whole life, right? So just recognize that the fact that you're all already in IEEE, which is the professional organization you will likely be in for the rest of your life, even after you've moved on from this student chapter, that is really, really good. So the initiative that you took to get here is the same initiative I want you to be taking to get that internship, to join that other club, to take on that extra project. take on that personal project and take pictures of it to have a portfolio that you can show off, right? So keep some of that in mind. And I really do want you to think through, jot it down for yourself. When you're falling asleep tonight, close your eyes and remember this moment and be like, what do I want? What do I want? Such a good question. So figure that out first. So any questions so far? Y'all doing good? Okay. So I made a flow chart. So I work a lot with engineers, as you can imagine, and I felt like this was the best way to kind of showcase what I mean. But what I'm saying is that when I say level 1, 2, or 3, it's not in like a derogatory way. It's not like a level 1 is a terrible resume and a level 3 is the best resume. It's just, this is the developmental process to get your resume from a beginner level to ready to apply for the job, okay? So level 1 is where you're really paying attention to what sections you have. So maybe right now, as we've been going through this, you're thinking like, gosh, I didn't think I should include that project from that lab, but I guess that it is pretty applicable to the kinds of jobs I want, so I should go ahead and add it. Or maybe you're looking at the education thing we talked about and you're like, I do have a start date, I didn't put my GPA, and I do have major, so I need to reformat that. Or maybe you're looking at skills and you're thinking, okay, I didn't really like know if I only have this much experience with that program, if I should include it or not. But now I realize that I can include it and put that I have a basic level of understanding of it, and that is fine. But I should put it on my resume. So if that's where you are, then you are currently at a level 1 and you are endeavoring to master this level by the end of today to get your resume super scannable in 6 seconds, such that someone would keep wanting to read it. And that means that you're thinking through, is my font readable, but also are the things all the same throughout my resume? Are all the organizations, let's say like bold and italicized, and all the roles italicized but not bold, and are all the locations neither bold nor italicized, right? You're thinking through, how could someone scan my resume really easily in 6 seconds and get all the information they need to decide that I'm interesting enough that they will invite me to an interview and read my resume more carefully. So there's nothing wrong with that. Or let's say you have some larger, like just like random, you included pronouns, or you have adverbs like skillfully or effectively, or you have references available upon request. Big no-no. If it comes to me with references available upon request, I make fun of you and I make you delete it right away, or grammar or spelling errors. So those are the kinds of things to pay attention to at level 1, okay? When I say I make fun of you, I'm just like, I know that I can ask you for anything if I'm trying to hire you. So of course you're gonna give me your references. I already know that. Level 2. So this is where you're getting to show yourself.
I have a question.
Yes.
What's references available on request? What does that mean?
It's where people put like references, my mom, my uncle, my professor, and they'll like have their contact information, or they'll put references available upon request. Both of those you don't need anymore because it used to be that.
So you just want to put information that is just readily available, right? That everyone knows.
Yeah, that's one way to think about it. I mean, it's an advertisement for you, so no one's ever going to contact your references unless they've interviewed you. And they're not going to interview you unless you have a good resume. So that's like giving them something that you don't need for like 2 more steps, basically, is a way to think about it.
Thank you.
Yeah, of course. And then, so this is where, so level 2 is where you're really targeting it for a particular industry. So like, let's say you know that you want to get into hardware or software, or you want to get into whatever. So you know what industry you want to get into. So you are now tailoring it for that industry specifically. And those target roles that you have, you might not have a particular job yet, but you're thinking through at a larger level where you want to go. And then you are putting your bullets in that XYZ format, making sure that you have your accomplishments instead of your tasks or responsibilities, your quantified results, and your technical and transferable skills outlined, and that action verb to start in the right time. So that's, and then I would also say make sure to organize so that the most impactful bullet is first, right? So again, if you're scanning in 6 seconds, the chances of them reading all the bullets you have underneath a section are very small, even if they're really interested in what you did, like your role or the company or something like that. The chances of them reading every bullet in that 6-second scan are very small, so make sure that your most impactful bullet is first. And then the last level is like, you have a job, you're like holding it in your hand, you're like, Alexis, I'm ready to apply to this NASA JPL internship, it looks great, and I'm ready to tailor it for that position. So that's where you're sitting there. You're going through with a highlighter or on your computer, and you are highlighting keywords, and you're making sure that your resume matches those keywords. If you don't obviously have a skill, you don't need to like shove it into your resume. That's not what I'm saying. But if like, let's say they have the word like AutoCAD and you have CAD, it's like so easy to switch it, right? So just make sure that you're using the same verbiage. Make sure at that point you remove the objective statement. Ironically, unless they've asked for it. So whatever they ask for in the job description, make sure you include it. And then run it through an applicant tracking system. Go ahead and just run it through one and see to make sure that your resume is scanning properly and that it's getting the keywords and key qualifications that you want to show off. And then save it as a PDF, first name, last name, resume, position, company. I saw like a LinkedIn post from a recruiter, and they were like, this is what my folder looks like. And it was like resume 1, resume 2, resume 3, resume 4, resume 5, copy resume 1. And so don't be that person. It sounds like a small way to, a small thing, but it is annoying for a recruiter to have to go through and relabel all of those resumes themselves. And it makes it hard to find you. So if you can take one extra step, it takes 8 extra seconds and it makes you look more impressive and makes the life easier for the recruiter. That's only going to help you. Okay, so let's take a look at a couple sample resumes and see where we think they land on this level 1, level 2, level 3 scale. So I want you to more think like, sure, like where they are today, but like where do you think would be the next logical step for them to endeavor to get today? So where's this resume at today? And where should they try to get to, like mastering level blank? You can tell me in the chat. You can unmute. What do you think?
Level 1.
Okay. So we have Van saying level 1. Any other thoughts?
I agree with level 1.
Okay. Yeah, I think that there is some missed opportunity here, right? Like for them to put more projects, they really want to maybe think through more sections that they could include, more projects to make it more scannable. They might want to consider how they are showcasing their information, like when they're using bold and their analytics. Sure, I see that. Okay, let's go on to the next one. So, okay, how about this resume? Where do you think they would want to get to today? It's probably easier, honestly, to have your PDF open because it's probably really small on your screens right now. But anyway, if you can bear with me, where do you think this resume is today, or where do you think they might want to get to today?
Level 2?
Yeah, level 2.
Level 2, yeah.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think that this is a really, really good resume. I would say like the formatting is incredibly clean. They have a lot of great technical skills. But something I would poke at is, okay, so 3D modeling of robotic arm using SolidWorks. All right, that's really straightforward to the point, lots of good jargon and like technical skills in there. But like, what did you do, right? Like, so I want to know more. Give me more of that XYZ. Let's pull out more of those accomplishments. Let's see that you're a high impact person. So I just might want a little bit more information. But this is a very good resume. Like I would see it and I'd be like, yeah, you're almost there. I can see that you're already starting to tailor it. It's just a matter of how can you push you a little further. Okay, how about this resume? No, this is the same resume. Okay, sorry. I keep doing this like every time I get this presentation. I'm like, oh, this is wrong. How come I didn't fix it yet? Okay, hold on a second. This is going to take me a while. In the meantime, I want you to think for yourself, since we've gone through some examples, about what are your, like, where are you at with your resume today? So bear with me while I get the thing open. I don't know why I keep forgetting to change this. Okay. So, almost there. Where are you at with your resume today? Where do you want to be? Okay, there we go. That's good. So, let's take a look at this one. So you can see they have their education up top, work experiences, academic projects, sales and recognition. I guess a even more interesting question would be for you all, what does this person, what kind of job do they probably want? Can you tell just based on the experiences and clubs and organizations they planned to put on their resume? What kind of job?
Aerospace.
Yeah, they want to go into aerospace.
Yeah,
And,
aerospace.
and even more particularly, I would guess they want to design parts for airplanes, right? Like it's really specific, and we're getting a really good sense of this person, and they no longer need an objective statement. This is probably for an actual job. Like it's really, really pretty much there. So, so maybe their step today would just be to go ahead and highlight those keywords and then make sure that they've used the same wording in their own resume, right?
I have a question.
Yes.
So for the objective, you only want to take that out when you're like going to apply to a specific company, right?
Yes, that's right. So, yeah, so you don't need an objective statement if it's not like a general. So when you're uploading to Handshake, when you're going to a career fair, an objective statement is very useful, right? Because you're handing out your resume to multiple people. But
Right.
when you're applying to a particular job, they know that your objective is to get that job. So that's when you maybe replace your objective with like a summary of qualifications or a highlights or nothing if your resume speaks for itself. So just, you know, keep that in mind. That said, if in the job description it asks for an objective statement, give it to them, of course. Like I know NASA JPL, in all irony, they do ask for it. They're like, we want you to say what your objective is, specifically what like branch, what role, like they want it in the resume probably for their own like data keeping ease or whatever. So just make sure to read the job description. 70% of applicants don't. So be better than that 70% and you'll at least be in the top 30. So yeah. Okay.
So I have one more question.
Yes.
So the objective statement, that's what like a company would look for to ask the question, is this person in line with our company goals? Like that's kind of what the objective is answering for the company. Is that right?
I mean, they just more want to know like what you want, and then do they have what you actually want? So let's say they're hiring for full-time positions and you come up and you say that you want an internship. They might say like, you know what, we don't have anything right now, but I like your resume. And then they might go back and say like, we need to like make an internship for this person, you know? So like it's helping them to understand how to help you or how you could fit in with their company.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, of course. So again, I want you to now think about for yourself, what level are you at today? And I would like it if you could put it in the chat. And again, there's no shame. It's kind of like where you're at and where you're endeavoring to get to today in the next 10 minutes when you're in your breakout rooms with a friend who's going to, you're going to like share your screen or whatever, and you're going to push each other and you're going to say, I think that maybe like, tell me more about the accomplishments that you had. What are you proud of in that role? You're going to ask each other, like, is that the most impactful bullet? You're going to ask each other, like, is that the best way to showcase your skills in that order? Do you want to start with your like Microsoft Office skills, or do you want to start with your, I don't know how to pronounce it, ANSYS Flow or whatever, your circuit boarding and all of that? So, okay. So level 1, switchy squish, level 1. It's so interesting. Yesterday I gave a resume workshop and everybody was like, I'm a level 2 or 3. And I was like, you know, it's okay to say you're a level 1. So I appreciate your humility. Everyone yesterday was like, I'm an expert. I was like, well, why did you ask me to come here? Okay, yeah, this is great. I think that's good. So Adrian, at this point, I think we can go ahead and go into breakout rooms and review each other's resumes. So you have a couple options.
Back on. All right.
All right. So how was that for everybody? I got to see you very briefly, but I hope that that was helpful, question mark? How'd it go?
It was really helpful, yeah.
Good.
It was really helpful, yeah.
I heard you all giving each other really good feedback. I was very moved. Okay, so with that in mind, there are a couple resources that I wanted to share with you and forgot, so let me share them with you really fast. I gave it to some of you already, but I'll just keep giving it to you over and over again. So these are a couple helpful things. The first link is this resume checklist that I made along with a couple sample resumes. So I know a few of you are starting from scratch, so you don't have to reinvent the wheel. If you want to, you can just like seriously like copy this and put your information on top of it for formatting purposes, or you don't have to. Maybe it's just formatting inspiration, whatever works for you. But it also has links to those applicant tracking systems we talked about, the XYZ Bullets article, the career guide with other resume samples. So you can use this document to help you, and you can download it onto your computer. The second thing is just cover letters. I know it usually comes up. We didn't talk about it today, and I don't want to talk about it now, but you can read that if you're looking for like, how do you write a cover letter? The last thing is the industry flyer. So this is the industry standard software and hardware that you're required to learn from your degree program. So I got this from the departments. This doesn't include electives, but like, for example, you can take a look at computer engineering, and you can see some examples that your faculty have thought of that are the things that they would want employers and industry people to know that their students learn by the time they graduate. And you can choose to then incorporate it onto your resume if you have it already. I also encourage